Welcome to the Sports Break here on RVNTV.tv. I'm your host, Renee Washington, and joining me on this NBA Thursday, I should say, is co-host Jonathan Stroud. Now, last two episodes we talked about divisions in the Western and Eastern Conference. Today we're going to get into the Northwest first. A little more exciting. We'll get to OKC last. But let's start off with the Portland Trailblazers. They still have Damian Lillard. They still have C.J. McCollum, Evan Turner. They brought in some players. Zach Collins, Wade Baldwin. Nothing huge. They lost Alan Crabb and Festus Ezeli, but
yeah. They still got the dynamic backcourt though, and C.J. and Damian, and I think this is like the toughest division, in the NBA, but. Portland's one of those teams. You just got to watch out for. They have a lot of firepower back there.
Right.
They traded for the big man. His name's escaped me right now. Last year, who should help as well. But CJ and Damian. If you got them dudes back there, it's going to be tough sledding for a lot of teams. So I think they're going to be an exciting team. I definitely think they'll be in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, and I think in a league where we've talked about this a lot. So many teams are changing. The one thing that they have is consistency, and that's something they have in their favor. Right. Not only do they have it, but they have guys who are still in their prime of their career, still playing well. And so that might help them in itself because they know what their backcourt is, and now it's just kind of working with some other guys to step up.
Yeah, and Alan Crabb is kind of a, I wouldn't say a huge loss, but it's going to take away a little bit from their chemistry. But, I don't know. I like Portland and their team. Especially out there in the West where it's going to be tough sledding for a lot of squads. But as far as the division's concerned, they've been battling with Minnesota and the other boys out there. So, but I think they're going to be competing for one of those spots though when it's all said and done.
Yeah. And then we have the Denver Nuggets. So they still have Kenneth Faried. They have Emmanuel Mudiay. They have Mason Plumlee and Nikola Jokic.
The squad is actually, it's decent, but it's just like it's nobody you ride. It's no household names on that squad, but it's just a bunch of. I liken it to like Memphis. It's a bunch of bunch of players who you wouldn't know who's going to give you what on any given night. Memphis does have Mike Conley over there, but as far as Denver, who's the star of that team?
Well, they did bring in Paul Millsap and Richard Jefferson, who's got.
Did you say Richard Jefferson?
He's got championship experience.
Richard Jefferson is 48 years old.
Literally. They are that team. In the Western Conference, that is they just can't compete.
Yeah, they're expecting out there in Denver to actually do something this year, and if they were in the East, and we're probably gonna say this a lot, if they were in the East, they probably would be competing for a spot. Yeah. But it's just gonna be too many teams out there for them to compete. They're gonna be one of those teams banging on Adam Silver's door, like we need to change the playoff format.
Yeah,
we're never gonna get in.
Exactly, and that's a tough part. We obviously know the front runners in Golden State, Houston, OKC. The Spurs, there's four right there. You add in Portland and Minnesota.
Right.
The final spots, Memphis, Denver, those teams. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're all trying to compete for the last two spots, basically.
Yeah, I don't see them getting a seat at the table.
Not looking good.
Not in Denver. Not unless they add an all-star not named Richard Jefferson.
Very true. I'm still surprised he's still in the league, to be honest.
Yeah.
I really thought.
Vince Carter.
Yeah. And I thought he would have retired in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And I was actually expecting after they won for him to be done.
Right.
And go out on a bang, get your ring and leave. And then he came back again. I was like, well, maybe he thinks they're going to win again, which I thought so too. But maybe he's hoping they're going to win again, so he's going to try to get a second ring, in 2 years. But not to move to Denver or be moved to Denver.
Some players just, they love the game. Basketball.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like football where you're getting out there and getting your head run every play. So,
very true. All right, so we do have to talk about the Utah Jazz. Now, they brought in Thabo Sefolosha, Tony Bradley, some rookies, and Eric Griffin and Tony Bradley, and then Ricky Rubio. Lost Gordon Hayward. Feel bad for Gordon Hayward. And George Hill.
Yeah.
So with Rudy Gobert still being there, Rodney Hood, how's this Utah team in the big stacked Western Conference?
Yeah, they're going to have to, hold on to have the Frenchman lead them to victory over there in Utah. I know they were upset with the whole the way things played out with Gordon Hayward. But it's a team on the rise. They can build around the big man. And Donovan Mitchell has been impressive, the rookie out of Louisville. They have some things to kind of build around over there. I see them looking on looking on the outside when it comes down to playoff time, just because of, you can't really replace that firepower that Gordon Hayward brought to the team. And I don't think there's enough there between, the big guy and then Donovan Mitchell, of course.
Yep, I think this is one of those teams that's in that looking from the outside in, going to be number 10, 9-10 in the conference.
Right. So. I see that. I mean, it's like I said, it's some nice surrounding parts there with Rudy Gobert, but just not enough. You know, it's another one of those. If they were in the East, things could be different for you. But sorry, you're in the West. So
yes. Well, there are two teams left that are in the West and still going to do well, and that's Minnesota, and we have to talk about them. They still have Karl Anthony Towns. They still have Andrew Wiggins, obviously, and then they brought in Jimmy Butler. Yeah. That's the biggest one. Jamal Crawford, Taj Gibson, Jeff Teague came in, and they lost, Zach LaVine, Ricky Rubio, and Chris Dunn. So
they're everybody's darling right now as far as out there in the West who made all those moves. They were expected to do something last year, and things just never really got on track for them. Yeah. So, they made the whole 360. They brought in Jimmy Butler, who has a relationship with the head coach over there. And, some other parts with Teague and the other boys. They already have Wiggins, of course, and Cat.
Exactly.
So, I expect them to be a top 4 or top 5 seed in the West as long as everything goes right with them. A little slow getting out of the blocks here in the first week or two of the season. They're not the only ones, but, it's a long season, and I expect them to be there at the end. To have a seat at the table.
Yes, I think they're going to be at the table. I do also think this is a group that, with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, they were always a young up-and-coming team, and now bringing in some big pieces like Jimmy Butler will help them turn a corner.
Yeah, they didn't really have any vets to help lead them on. That's that can't be understated in the NBA. It's you get all these young players that are in there, but at the end of the day, it's a grown man's league. So you need still the steady hand of the vets in there to kind of be in your ear, kind of guide the ship, be that extension of the coach on the court, and no better one than Jimmy Butler, who's a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA, and then you surround him with some other vets out there. You still have Ricky Rubio, like I mentioned, Jeff Teague, and the other guys that they brought in. So no reason for this team not to be, like I said, top 4, top 5 seed in the West.
Yeah, if they don't make the playoffs at all, then that's a failing season, absolutely. But there is a team left that has that veteran experience and leadership, and also someone that averages triple doubles every game pretty much, and that's OKC. So we obviously know who they brought in with Carmelo. They also brought in Raymond Felton and Paul George, and they lost Norris Cole. They lost Maj Kristen.
Norris Cole.
Enes Kanter. Victor Oladipo. Let me get that right. Yeah. And then they still have Russ. So bringing in Paul George and Melo to start with Russ already being there. Let's not forget they do have Andre Robertson. Or I should say Andre Airball Roberson. Airball free throws Roberson. With that group, Steven Adams, Russ, that group that's always been right there in the top of the West, and you bring in two guys like Paul George and Carmelo.
Yeah, they are the big three in the league, and I'm looking at, just kind of tracking this team because it's one of those teams you want to see getting out of the gate, how everything's going to mesh chemistry-wise. And they did drop a couple games to start off. Now they're 2-2. But they played a lot of those 3 players. And the thing that's going to be interesting to watch with them is the bench and how they the surrounding pieces, because it's a long season and you don't want to wear those dudes out. All see. Not that I want anybody to rest, but it's just after you get past those big 3 and then you have Steven Adams, it's like who else is going to provide support here? You don't need that much, but you still need those intangible players to kind of make things go the right way. So. I'm still picking them to be the biggest threat to the Warriors, but it's just going to be a matter. They're going to need some other players to kind of do some things in there for them besides Russ, Melo, and PG 13.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing. In this league, having a big 3 is not enough anymore.
Right.
When you're competing against teams like Golden State and Cleveland, and they have the big 3 and some. Right. So now the guys they're subbing in their role players. Their role players are stepping up and contributing a lot too, which allows their top players to be able to rest and still know that their teammates are going to get the job done.
Right.
And with OKC, we definitely saw that in the past with Russ carrying them.
Right.
And you even see when they lost to the Pacers and Paul George fouls out, he scores 10 points in 19 minutes, and then then what? Who's next? Who steps up now?
Yeah, I mean, the term the other guys, I mean, you need them. I mean, Cleveland, they're, I think, the deepest team in the league. They can go 10, 11 deep. The Warriors, I mean, kind of the same way. But when you talk about the Thunder, I mean, once you get past 6, 7, they need to be a little bit deeper in their rotation for the long run. You know, I mean, it's okay to shorten the rotation up in the playoffs, but when you play an 82-game season, Russ, Melo, and PG-13, you're going to have to get those other guys involved so that they can last over the whole season. So that's my only, thing with OKC right now.
Yeah, I do see it coming down. I mean, when we talk about the postseason and you're getting into playoffs and finals and it's now a 7-game series and you have to be able to beat a team, not just once, but try to beat them 4 times.
Right.
And now you're playing teams like Golden State, Houston, and you're OKC. You can't have Andre Roberson out there airballing free throws. Like you that will come back.
Beef with Andre Roberson.
That's pretty bad. That's really bad. Twice.
They need to get Richard Jefferson on that team. That's what I think they might need to do.
That would be hilarious. But I mean, there's just something about being able to compete with those teams for 7 games versus, I mean, you talk about the longevity of the season, but when you look at it, these teams are playing for the postseason. I mean, that's their big season. And they have to be able to compete and win 4 games in the playoffs, period. And I don't know if that's where OKC, to me, would drop the ball.
Right. Yeah, no, it's going to be a ultra competitive season here with all the moves that have been made. It's the regular season. I think it's going to be more emphasis on it, especially with teams in the West. So, I mean, I don't know if they make a trade to get some other players in there, so they could do some other things. But and it's very early. So I mean, but I'm just saying, long-term view for them, they need some other parts to kind of really contribute to get where they need to go to.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we do have to take a quick break. When we get back, we will talk about the Atlantic Division, so we're switching to the other side of the country, I should say, and some teams that are also trying to get things going with their new parts and pieces that they've added. So right after this break, don't go far because we'll be right back shortly.
Why travel to Philadelphia or Atlantic City for memorable and diverse dining? Experience the unique style and ambiance of Napa Valley wine country right here in the heart of South Jersey. At Terra Nova Restaurant, it's casual yet sophisticated with contemporary American cuisine. Enjoy South Jersey's best sushi and raw bar, the freshest seafood, thick, delicious steaks, pastas, appetizers, and desserts. Our wine bar offers selections from virtually every major wine-producing region in the world. Choose from over 200 wines, with 50 available by the glass. Join us at Terra Nova for Wine Down Wednesdays with special half-price bottles of wine. Sit, sip, and enjoy. Our bar happy hour features sushi at half price. Every Friday night, it's live music and our pasta and wine Sundays. Spotlight 25.
Welcome back to the Sports Break here on RVNTV.tv. I'm your host, Renee Washington, and joining me to talk about the NBA divisions, breaking down teams, is co-host Jonathan Stroud. So we were just on the western side of the country talking about the Northwest Division. Now we're going to get into the Atlantic. So let's get rid of, let's talk about some of the smaller teams first. Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's the top of the division. You better not sleep on them right now.
Oh, just because they beat the Cavs.
They done beat your boy Brown.
Whatever.
Night,
It's a long season. It's very early, so we're going to get them out the way. But they might, I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll be a good team with D'Angelo Russell at the helm when he gets back. So they did bring in D'Angelo Russell. They brought in Timothy Mozgov, Alan Crabb, who we talked about, and they lost Brooke Lopez. But they still have Rondé. They still have Jeremy Lin, Isaiah Whitehead. I mean,
they ain't got Jeremy Lin no more. He's on the shelf. He's out there with Gordon Hayward, getting rehabbed and whatnot.
Yeah.
Sad to say. Sorry, I didn't mean anything by that. But.
Yes. But, I mean, injuries happen, and we've been seeing some so far this season. But with Brooklyn, What have you been seeing? I mean, they knocked off the Cavs.
I think they're tired of everybody talking greasy on their name out there. I mean, they've been pretty much the whipping child for the NBA for the past 2-3 seasons. The team that made the worst trade in NBA history, giving Boston the #1 pick for it seems like till 2020. So out there right now they're coming out the gates, playing hard. We mentioned they beat Cleveland last night. You got D'Angelo Russell, who, I mean, I guess he's out for revenge this year. Getting traded away. I don't expect this to keep up. I mean, like I said, they're at the top of the division. I said that tongue in cheek. So they're 3-2 right now. I don't see it lasting.
Yeah.
I think when it's all said and done, this thing gets shuffled out. Hopefully, the Sixers, who are at the bottom right now, they'll rise to the top and be where Brooklyn is right now. But yeah, Brooklyn, it's good for them. I give them a nice golf clap. They started off the season, so they're doing all right.
Yeah, I mean, hey, take what you can get. It's a small victory. Yeah. Right now, you're the #1 team in the division.
Hey.
I don't know how long that'll last either, but you can say for now that you are at the top. So this is a tough division. I mean, we also have in New York, also in Empire State, the Knicks. And we know who they lost in Carmelo, but they still have Joakim Noah. They still have Kristaps Porzingis and Lance Thomas. They brought in Michael Beasley. They brought in Tim Hardaway Jr., Jared Jack, Enes Kanter, and Frank Ntilikina.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah. I still can't get it.
So Brooklyn is passing the baton of Stank Squad to New York now. They're going to give it to New York Knicks because they haven't won a game yet, and I see this as being one of the worst teams in the league.
Even with Michael Beasley, who's returned and saying he's going to be the top player in the league.
He said they were going to be a top squad or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's because he's one of the top players. He's just as good as LeBron and KD.
Him and Ben Gordon belong in the same psych evaluation. But, the Knicks are just... The Knicks. What can you say about him? I mean, Kristoff, good for him. He's going to get a chance to go off and really show what he can do this year now that he's not really hamstrung by a triangle or by the shadow of Melo or anything like that. But, I mean, who does this team have, really? I mean, you talk about Enes Kanter, you talk about Kristoff, the rookie who, he can't really get on the court right now. Joakim Noah. I mean, I forgot he was in the league right now. So, Tim Hardaway Jr., I kind of like his, his poise and everything that he brings to the team. But, yeah, this is going to be one of those squads that will be looking out for the lottery balls when it's all said and done. I
agree. I mean, they're fortunate that they're on the eastern side of the country. So in the Eastern Conference, it's not as strong, yet they're still not one of the top 8, in my opinion.
Top 8? What's going on over there, Renee?
I mean, as of now, everyone has a fair chance, but no, they're not. They don't have a chance.
There's no chance for New York. Sorry to say.
It's early. You never know what'll happen, but no, it's not going to happen.
It's going to be a long season for you Knicks fans.
It is, definitely. A long year or two. So, we do have Toronto. Yeah. And they have brought in some rookies. They brought in C.J. Miles. They lost Corey Joseph, who's team to team, it seems like. Patrick Patterson, P.J. Tucker, and they still have DeMar DeRozan, Serge Ibaka, who I'm a huge fan of, and Kyle Lowry. So, pretty good team there.
Drake's Raptors. It's going to be, they do the same thing every year as far as, it's like Groundhog's Day with the Toronto Raptors. Every year, top 3-4 seed, get bounced in the second round.
Yep.
I don't really see anything changing from that. They need a third guy on that team. I mean, Serge Ibaka, nice player. He can shoot the 3, but he's not the third. I mean, he's just a nice fit role player on a great team. So, I mean, once you get past Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, who's a beast, C.J. Miles, really good 3-point shooter that they brought in, but they might catapult Boston now with their injuries and what they have going on. So it might be a 2-team race between Toronto and Cleveland out there. Wizards might have something to say about that, but I don't really expect anything from Toronto.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing an Eastern Conference Finals team or anything like that. So same thing with them, getting bounced in the second round is what I'm seeing. I don't think they should have re-signed Kyle Lowry for all that money, to be honest with you. I don't think he's worth all that.
No. So. The tough thing with them is, as you mentioned, every year they are a top team, a front runner in the Eastern Conference, and they get to the playoffs, can't win a game on the road.
Right.
And they're so inconsistent, and that's the biggest thing. We talk about that 7-game series. You can't have a great game and then have 2 crappy games and expect to win the series. And I think for them, they really struggle with putting together a full series against a top team. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can get past the first round. You're not really playing. I mean, on the Eastern Conference, they're not really playing someone that great in the first round. They step up, they beat them. You're like, oh wow, Toronto's got something going. Right. In the second round, it's like, they go back. They're like a turtle. They go back into their shell, and they just disappear. That's it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, they almost really should have lost to Milwaukee last year in the playoffs. But Milwaukee's just one of those up and coming teams. I guess you got out muscled by Toronto, but.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they're just missing another piece on that team. I mean, DeMar DeRozan, I was watching the other night against the Sixers. I mean, he's definitely legit. He's a true all-star, NBA all NBA player. But after you get past that, and Kyle Lowry, who I think is kind of on the arrows kind of pointing down on his career, I don't see much from these guys.
I don't either. So we're moving on. That's all we see.
Yeah.
They need to step it up. But we do have the Boston Celtics, and but them, they have Jaylen Brown still, Al Horford. They still have, Marcus Smart, brought in Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum, and lost Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder to the Cavs, Amir Johnson, Kelly Olynyk, and Isaiah Thomas, obviously. So this is another team that we've talked about that has had a lot of change going on. And unfortunately, even with bringing in players, they still had more change with Gordon Hayward's devastating injury. And I still can't say I'm sorry enough. Yeah, but there's still so much in the air because they brought in players thinking this was going to be their team, preparing for the season. Bam, he goes down in the first quarter. And now we're looking at a whole different Celtics team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry for Gordon Hayward, but I hate the Celtics, so you're not going to see me feel bad for the Celtics and what's going on for them for the long term. But as far as their team, I mean, I'm watching them closely because of that trade that happened with the Sixers and Jason Tatum. And he's obviously looking more NBA ready than what we have going on right now. I mean, Jaylen Brown is an impressive second-year player as well. I mean, Kyrie's just going to have to do everything. He's just going to have to, average 30
Which
and 10.
I think is what he wanted.
This
is right up his alley. I mean, he wanted to be the face of the franchise, and he thought Gordon Hayward would be someone he could play with. They could work together, big and little. Gordon Hayward goes down, and now it's the Kyrie show.
Yeah, and they got a couple players on there that irritate you if you're a fan, like Rozier and Marcus Smart.
Yes.
Like, these are players that if you're a Sixers fan, you're going to be annoyed by these players for years to come because they just do, they get under your skin, they're gritty. And they're the type they're probably going to carry the Celtics throughout the season.
Right.
We talk about those other guys. Marcus Smart and Rozier are those other guys for the Boston Celtics. And then you have a rookie in Tatum who's looking like, he wants to compete for Rookie of the Year. I think Ben Simmons is going to have something to say about that. But, Boston, they're a drop-off now, of course, with the Hayward injury. So I see them probably going to a maybe third or fourth seed when it's all said and done in the East. But they're going to be right there. And, it pains me to say that because I can't stand the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I used to be a Celtics fan back when the Kevin Garnett, Rajon Rondo, Paul Pierce era, but that was years ago.
You used to be a Celtics fan. You got LeBron.
I used to like them more, I should say. I used to like them more. I was always a LeBron fan. Whatever team he's on. So back when he was on Cleveland. I'm saying now I can't stand them either because to me they are that team. Even with Jaylen Brown, you mentioned Marcus Smart and Rozier, but Jaylen Brown also, those guys that are just constantly talking. I put them in the category with Draymond Green. Those guys that are good players, but you hate to see them do well because they run their mouth so much. Every play, they're getting in someone's face. They're the team that's overhyped for the smallest things.
Right.
You get a defensive stop, and they just act like they won the whole game because they're just so...
They chirp a lot. But I think the Crowder and Avery Bradley leaving the team is going to hurt them. And believe it or not, even Kelly Olynyk, because he provided a nice spark for him in the playoffs last year. So those three players, you bring in Tatum and you thought Hayward, but I think those three players are going to hurt them a little bit in the long run as well. So they're not as deep a team as they were last year. But they're set up for the long view. So even after this year, they're going to be there. So
yeah, and Jay Crowder's a player that was just very consistent. He was the muscle behind the team, level-headed. And I do like the way that Jason Tatum is playing. He looks very impressive so far. And unfortunately for the Sixers...
He looks like a guy who doesn't have the yips. He looks like a guy who doesn't
look scared.
Doesn't need a therapist.
He looks good. He looks very good. I mean, for a few games in, there are only a handful of rookies that are stepping up early, and that transition from college to the NBA mentally in itself is tough enough. And Jason Tatum looks like he's just taking it in stride, looking good.
It's just like a gut punch right now because it's just like I know we're about to transition from this to what we have going on in Markelle Fultz, and it's just like, I don't know. I don't want anybody out there doing what the Sixers did and tanking for, because you see what happens here. Every rookie we get is now, either on the shelf, or now we have this mental case of, is it a shoulder, is it not a shoulder? I'm sorry, just go ahead.
Yeah, so we will go to the Sixers, the last team before we wrap up the show. They still have Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. They brought, Dario's still there. They brought in T.J. McConnell, let me not forget anyone. Robert Covington's still there, Jahlil Okafor, Justin Anderson, and they brought in Markelle Fultz. That's a huge one. Amir Johnson, James McAdoo, and J.J. Redick. So, the Sixers lost last night in a tough game.
Very sad.
About to be a three-pointer. To lose by 1.
I was at the game, and I just sat there in awe as that, because I knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I knew they was going to shoot a three-pointer, and I knew it was going to go in, and they had no business even going down to that. It's 5 possessions where they couldn't score. They up by 8 with less than 3 minutes to go. I mean, this should not have happened. And, Brett Brown, who I love as a coach, man, but we got to get the ball inside. In the last 5 possessions, you got a 7'2" player who's 280. Just give the ball to him. Nobody can guard him. Just throw it to him. And Ben Simmons, you got to be a little more aggressive, buddy. I mean, I love your game, but take it to the hole and dunk on somebody. That's my assessment for the Sixers right now.
So far this season with the Sixers, we've already seen them over-managing, in my opinion, Joel Embiid's minutes. And he even had a comment saying, "I'm not made of glass," or something that to that effect, because they are, he's human. He got hurt,
out of me, though.
but he does. Yes, but this is also a player that when did he start playing basketball?
Yeah.
And when did he have his growth spurt and everything? And then we have Ben Simmons coming back from injury, and now Markelle Fultz, his shoulder, all types of things going on. Maybe more up here. Oh, we did that at the same time.
It's all in your head.
But
you got a case of the Aguilars.
I think it's the case of I know I'm on the Sixers and the Philly curse of injuries. So real quick, your last point on the Sixers, because I know you can go on a whole rant.
I can go a whole day on this, but I mean, you got the trainer coming out saying he didn't change his shot. The Sixers coming out saying he changed his shot. So it's like nobody can get on the same page here. But I just really think it's all in this kid's head. And he has the skill set to be a great player. Markelle, you just get out of your own way, man. Just if you need to sit down for a couple games, which I guess that we're going to do, that's fine. But, dude, you shot 41% in college from three-point range. So we know you can shoot. But, all this shot put stuff from the free throw line, like who's ever in your head, just go back to what you're doing at Washington. This is basketball. Get out there and play the game that you love and show us why you're the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and maybe that pressure of being the number 1 pick is also what's getting to him.
But there really shouldn't be I didn't mean to cut you off. There shouldn't be any pressure because he has Embiid and Simmons out there who, really, this team is not really constructed for Fultz to go out there and take over. Right. He just has to get in there and show you a couple plays and just be that added piece. So it's really not the pressure of a number 1 pick who needs to do everything. So that's also the frustrating part. Like, you just need to get in there and just play ball.
Just
you
play.
know what I mean?
But I think that's once he starts to realize that, and even with Ben Simmons playing so well, Joel Embiid, those guys getting going, hopefully that'll bring him along too to realize I just got to play. It's not all on you. Yes, you were the number 1 pick, but that doesn't mean that you have to carry the team to now win the Eastern Conference and do all these new things. You just need to play the game, take your lumps and get through it. Done. Yeah. So I'm excited to see how this young Sixers team plays out because they have a lot of new pieces that are old pieces, like a Ben Simmons who didn't play at all last year, Joel Embiid who played, in 3 years played like half a season, and Markelle Fultz, and Dario and those players. There's a lot there that still is up in the air. So
I ain't hitting the panic button yet, but I'll tell you what, another 5 games of this mess, Lord have mercy. Can't take my hypertension, my blood pressure. It cannot take but so much more of this.
Jeez. There you have it. So the Atlantic Division is looking like it's going to be an exciting one to follow. And the Eastern Conference may be more exciting than people are really giving it credit. But that being said, we are done with the sports break. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
That's it?
That is it. I know. That's it. But if you want to catch us some more, we'll be back tomorrow with a special guest. And, of course, next week we'll talk about the NBA some more. So every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 a.m. right here. I'm your host, Renee Washington, with Jonathan Stroud. We hope you have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.